In the middle of the ocean between the islands of Java and Sumatra, there was a small but powerful volcano known as Krakatoa. It sat in the Sunda Strait, part of a chain of islands in what is now Indonesia. At first glance, it didn't seem especially dangerous. It was just one of many volcanic islands in the region, mostly covered in trees, with steep rocky slopes and quiet coastlines. But Krakatoa had a violent past. Old records and local legends told of earlier eruptions long before the 19th century. Some even said entire civilizations may have been affected by Krakatoa's earlier explosions. Scientists later found layers of volcanic rock in the area that hinted at a massive eruption many centuries earlier, possibly one of the largest the world had ever seen. By the 1800s, the volcano had been silent for a long time. People lived on nearby islands and along the coasts of Java and Sumatra without much worry. The waters around the island were busy with trade ships and fishing boats. The land was rich and full of life. Then, in May of the year 1883, the first clear sign appeared that something was changing. Without warning, Krakatoa began to rumble. A column of ash shot into the sky, surprising nearby ships and startling villagers who could see the black cloud from miles away. At the time, it didn't seem too serious. Many believed the volcano was just letting off a bit of pressure. But scientists of the time, including Dutch colonial officials, took notice. Some began to record the strange activity, keeping notes on the ash, the small earthquakes, and the changing color of the sea near the island. Still, no one could have predicted what was coming. What started as a quiet island in the sea was about to become the center of one of the most powerful natural disasters in recorded history. By the middle of August, in the year 1883, Krakatoa was no longer quiet. The warning signs had become impossible to ignore. A thick black cloud hung over the island, and loud booming sounds echoed across the sea. Ships passing through the nearby Sunda Strait reported seeing ash fall onto their decks. Some described the strange sight of lightning flashing from inside the ash cloud, something now known as volcanic lightning. On Sunday, August 26th, the first massive explosion happened just after noon. It was so loud that it was heard more than 1,000 miles away in Perth, Australia, and even farther in places like the island of Rodriguez, over 2,800 miles away. People thought it was the sound of gunfire or cannon blasts, but this was only the beginning. That evening, and into the early morning hours, the volcano erupted again and again, each time with more force. The island was breaking apart from within. Tremors shook the ground and the sky turned completely dark with ash. The sun disappeared behind thick clouds of dust and rock, and it seemed like night had fallen in the middle of the day. Then came the largest explosion of all. On the morning of Monday, August 27th, just before 9 o'clock. The force of this final blast was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. A huge part of Krakatoa, including the entire northern portion of the island, was blown apart. The explosion sent ash and rock more than 20 miles into the sky. The pressure wave from the blast traveled around the entire world 4 times. Nearby islands were devastated. Coastal towns on Java and Sumatra were shaken to their foundations. But the worst part was not the explosion itself. It was what followed. A massive, deadly tsunami. After the final eruption tore Krakatoa apart on the morning of Monday, August 27th, the force of the explosion triggered something just as deadly, a massive tsunami. As the volcano collapsed into the sea, it displaced millions of tons of water, sending waves racing in all directions. The tsunami struck the nearby coastlines of both Java and Sumatra with almost no warning. Entire villages were swallowed up in minutes. In some places, waves reached as high as 120 feet. Fishing boats were thrown far inland. Houses, markets, and mosques were reduced to splinters and carried away by the water. People who had survived the ash and falling debris now found themselves facing an even greater danger, the ocean itself. Some of the most devastating damage occurred in the town of Merak, on the coast of Java. Eyewitnesses described how the sea suddenly pulled back, leaving fish flopping in the sand. Then a towering wall of water appeared on the horizon. Within seconds, it crashed into the town, wiping it off the map. No buildings were left standing. Farther away on the island of Sumatra, the waves still reached with terrifying force. One survivor from a coastal village described climbing a tree to escape the water, only to be thrown back down as the tree was torn from the ground. Entire families disappeared. Those who lived through it often did so by clinging to pieces of wood or floating in the floodwaters for hours. Even ships at sea were affected. Some vessels reported being lifted and thrown by the sudden waves, while others vanished without a trace. reports as far away as Sri Lanka and India recorded strange water movements caused by the tsunami. In the Indian Ocean, the shockwaves continued to ripple outward, eventually being recorded on tide gauges as far as South Africa and even the English Channel. The death toll was staggering. Over 36,000 people lost their lives, most of them from the tsunami. In many coastal areas, there were simply no survivors to tell what happened. The landscape was changed completely, towns erased, harbors reshaped, and the coastline carved anew by the sea. Krakatoa's eruption was over, but the suffering had only just begun. The people who lived through it faced a world that looked nothing like the one they had known the day before. After the eruption and the tsunami, Krakatoa's effects continued to spread far beyond Indonesia. In the weeks and months that followed, people around the world began noticing strange and beautiful changes in the sky. Sunsets turned deep red and orange. Some places reported purple twilights and golden clouds. In cities like London, New York, and Rio de Janeiro, the sky glowed in unusual colors long after the sun had gone down. These changes were caused by the massive amount of volcanic ash and gas that Krakatoa sent into the upper atmosphere. That ash spread across the globe, carried by high winds, sunlight hitting the tiny particles scattered in a different way, causing the strange colors. People did not know at the time that what they were seeing was connected to a volcanic eruption on the other side of the world. In some countries, people thought the red skies were signs of war or a message from God. Artists and writers tried to capture the strange light in paintings and poems. One of the most famous paintings from that time, The Scream by Edvard Munch, is believed to have been inspired by the red sky that followed Krakatoa's eruption, but the ash did more than change the sky. It also affected the weather. The sunlight that reached the Earth's surface was slightly reduced, causing global temperatures to drop. The year after the eruption, many places reported colder weather and strange patterns in rain and snowfall. This cooling effect was felt for more than a year. Scientists at the time were still learning about volcanoes, but Krakatoa helped change that. It was one of the first natural disasters to be studied using worldwide communication. Reports from telegraph offices and weather stations were collected and compared. The event helped scientists understand how volcanic eruptions could affect the whole planet. Krakatoa's eruption also taught a painful lesson about warning systems and preparedness. Many people living near the volcano had no idea of the danger they were in. Afterward, efforts slowly began to improve ways to monitor volcanoes and oceans. Today, that tragic eruption is one of the reasons early warning systems exist for tsunamis and volcanic activity. In the end, the eruption of Krakatoa in the year 1883 was more than just a disaster for Indonesia. It was a global event that shook the earth, changed the sky, and left a deep mark in both science and memory. The volcano itself was mostly destroyed, but its story still lives on as one of the most powerful and far-reaching natural events in human history.